Right. Welcome to the brain. This is going to be our final section in the nervous system. The brain is going to be divided up into four major regions. There is the cerebrum, which is probably what you actually visualize when you think of the brain. It's going to be our major processing centers or higher level processing centers. There's going to be the diencephalon, which you have probably never heard of before. The diencephalon is found inside the brain. We're going to have the brain stem, which is going to connect the brain to the spinal cord and is going to carry most of our primitive functions, our survival functions. Respiratory centers are located in the brainstem. Cardiovascular centers are located in the brainstem. Anything involving survival is typically found in the brainstem, which is why brainstem damage is catastrophic. And then we have the cerebellum. You've probably seen it and not realized you've seen it. It's at the very back and bottom of the brain. It's like a secondary little lump. And it is also critical because it carries stored muscle memory. So especially if you've done sports, you've been told you need to repeat this action over and over and over again, so it's muscle memory. But that's a misnomer because it's not your muscles that are remembering, it's your cerebellum that is remembering that particular motor pathway, that pattern. But we'll talk about that more in a moment. So those are our four major portions. This is a sagittal view of the brain. So we have it cut in half, so we're able to see the cerebrum. Here is that diencephalon region, that inner portion. Cerebellum is down here, and here is our brainstem. So the cerebrum itself is divided into right and left hemispheres. These hemispheres are going to be connected by a bridge of nerves that are referred to as the corpus callosum. And its surface is covered in ridges and grooves. These ridges are referred to as gyri, and the groove is a sulci. That is the, sorry, I actually misspoke. Gyri is the plural, sulci is the plural as well. Sulcus, gyrus, that is the singular. There are also some very deep grooves that are referred to as fissures, and they're typically going to separate major sections, whereas the sulci are found in many different places. What is the purpose of these ridges and grooves? They are going to increase surface area. More surface area means we have more computing power. The cerebrum itself is going to have a cortex layer. It's very, very thin, and it is composed of gray matter. There is no myelin sheath here. 75% of all neuron cell bodies are found in this very thin cerebral cortex. Below it, we're going to find axons that are covered in that myelin sheath. Below that cerebral cortex, we are going to find white matter. As I mentioned, the cerebral cortex is going to, or the cerebrum itself, is where we're going to have our higher neural processing centers, and most of those are going to be found in the cerebral cortex. Here we're going to find our ability to perceive our environment, form ideas, recall past events, command body movement, and a variety of other complex integrating centers that enable us to actually use the sensory input from our eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, and skin. Each hemisphere is going to be divided up into lobes. At the front of the hemisphere, you're going to find the frontal lobe behind your forehead. It does actually travel back into your brain quite a bit, and then it's going to come in contact with the parietal lobe. The temporal lobe is going to be situated below the parietal lobe, and basically find your ear right in that area, right just a little bit above it. If you go to the back of your skull, that is where you're going to find the occipital lobe. And then there is a very unique lobe that is referred to as the insula, and that's located deep into the hemisphere, so it's not in the cortex region. And that is where we're going to find the diencephalon. Color coding is fantastic, and this is what this diagram is trying to show you. It is color coding various areas, functional areas of the cerebral cortex. So our visual site, occipital lobe. Association areas, memory, equilibrium, emotion, temporal lobe. Motor function, initiation of voluntary muscle contractions. That's this little sliver right here. Not to be confused with the sensory association areas. That's going to be over here. Broca's area, it's right here. Broca's area is going to be involved in your ability to speak and form sounds. So if you are unable to form sounds, you may have a malfunction in your Broca's area. So the way your lips move, the way your tongue moves, the way your vocal cords fold and bend and stretch, that's going to all be controlled by Broca's area. Auditory area is going to be located here. Emotion, pain, hunger, fight or flight responses, that's this portion right here. Olfactory, your sense of smell, that's actually going to be located right in here. Other sensory information, skin, muscles in particular, are going to be located here. Somatosensory, so evaluation of weight, textures, temperatures, object recognition, that's this area over here. Wernicke's is this region right in here. And this is going to be your ability to understand written and spoken language. So language comprehension is what it's typically referred to. So the fact that you understand the words that you are hearing is due to Wernicke's. The fact that you can form intelligent or understandable sentences, phrases, words, that's Wernicke's. So if you can make sense, you're spitting out language salad as it's referred to, that might be an issue with your Wernicke's area. Motor function area, that's this region right in here. So eye movement and orientation. Higher mental functions such as concentration, planning, judgment, emotional expression, creativity, inhibition, that's your frontal lobe. This is why people who have brain trauma to their frontal lobe tend to have anger issues. They have compulsion issues. They have an inability to plan or to regulate their emotions. It's because of damage to this region. Cerebellum, motor functions. I will be getting to the cerebellum itself here shortly, but the cerebellum is responsible for our ability to coordinate all of our movements, as well as our sense of balance, equilibrium, and posture. The fact that we don't fall over when we walk and run, especially when we run, is due to the cerebellum. It's the cerebellum coordinating everything so we stay upright and on our 2 feet. Here is the written version of that previous slide. So in the anatomy section of the brain, and actually in the physiology section, we end up mentioning, sometimes in passing and sometimes in deep discussion, these masses of gray matter deep in the cerebrum. Remember, gray matter is our unmyelinated, and they're called a basal nuclei. There are many of them. These basal nuclei are going to be clusters of cell bodies that are basically acting as relay stations for motor impulses. Here we have the ventricles, or spaces within the brain. There are 4 of them. 1 and 2 are these sloping, or these curved ones. There's going to be 1 in each hemisphere running front to back. There's here, the 3rd one is going to be located in the middle, and the 4th one is going to run down the brainstem and connect to the spinal cord. What's the purpose of these ventricles? They are interconnected cavities that are filled with cerebral spinal fluid. Essentially, what they're doing is they are spaces located in the brain, inside the brain, to enable CSF to flow inside the brain to regulate those ions that we mentioned earlier. That's their purpose. They're to help with that regulation so that the nerves can function correctly. You. Moving into the diencephalon. The diencephalon is located between the hemispheres but above the midbrain. It's going to contain structures such as the thalamus, which is the central relay station for sensory impulses. It's going to contain the hypothalamus. It's also going to contain optic tracts with the optic chiasma passing through. Pausing here real quick. What are the optic tracts? The optic tracts is going to be your optic nerve traveling from your eyeball to the back of your brain where the information is actually going to be processed. The optic chiasma is where the optic nerve from your right eye crosses over into the left brain, and the nerve from your left eye crosses over into the right brain. That's the optic chiasma. There's going to be a little bridge called the infundibulum that connects to the pituitary gland. We're also going to have the pineal gland located here, and the limbic system. The limbic system is a series of structures that are responsible for emotional responses and expression. Now, I just said that the frontal lobe was responsible for that as well. I can't remember if I included the diagram or not. But there should be a diagram. You can easily Google image them, of the structures involved with the limbic system, and many of them are located in the frontal lobe region of the cerebrum. They're right under the surface. So damage to the frontal lobe typically also damages the limbic system, which means both of those functions are compromised. So the thalamus, as I mentioned, integrates sensory and motor information. It's a sensory relay to the cortex. Hypothalamus is going to be involved with food intake regulation, thermoregulation, so your ability to maintain a stable body temperature. It is going to be involved with the endocrine system. Specifically, it is going to secrete a series of hormones that are referred to as neuroendocrine, and it's going to regulate the secretion of other hormones. So it's heavily involved. We're also going to find a nucleus. Remember, this is going to be a cluster of cell bodies that's referred to as the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This nucleus is going to be attached to the pineal gland, which secretes melatonin, and the nucleus itself is going to regulate our circadian rhythm. Limbic structures. What are some structures involved in it? The amygdala, the hippocampus, the fornix, cingulate gyrus, parts of the thalamus and hypothalamus. All of these structures are going to work together to enable us to learn, manage our emotions, and manage our behavior. And I guess I didn't put in the picture. Moving to the brainstem. The brainstem is divided into 3 sections: the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Yes, insert water boy quote here. The midbrain itself is a very short section. It's the first section of the brainstem. It is located between the diencephalon and the pons, and many of your main motor pathways are going to pass through it. It's also going to contain many of your visual and auditory reflexes. The pons is going to be found right below the midbrain. It's actually going to have a round little bulge to it, and its main purpose is going to transmit and relay information to various other parts of the brain. You're also going to find one of your respiratory centers here. Medulla oblongata is going to be our last one, and it is going to connect the brainstem, and therefore the brain, to the spinal cord. The medulla oblongata actually extends out of your skull. It extends down through the foramen magnum, slightly into the cervical spinal column. This is perfectly normal, perfectly natural. It's still perfectly protected. However, there are conditions out there in which the medulla oblongata extends down further than it's supposed to into the cervical spinal column, and this can cause issues if there's trauma to the neck. So most people who have it, they don't realize they do until they get in a car accident. They wake up and they have this massive headache, and because they just slept wrong, old age. So you get older, you sleep funky, and you hurt for days. Well, for these individuals, they'll have neurological effects. They might have shortness of breath, irregular heart rate, a variety of different things. It's not just a headache. One of the major reasons why I know about this is because I'm a chiropractor by trade, and one of the things that we are taught, it is drilled into us, is that if a patient has this extended medulla oblongata and they don't know it, if we go and adjust their neck, they can have shortness of breath after the adjustment. They may have irregular heart rate after the adjustment. Whole bunch of different things can suddenly pop up. And it's not because we did anything wrong, it's because their medulla oblongata isn't where it's supposed to be. Thankfully, I've never had it happen to me, but apparently it's rather nerve-wracking. Here's the thing, x-rays don't catch it. It's not going to show up on an x-ray. The medulla oblongata is not hard enough, dense enough in tissue to show up on an x-ray. So the only way it's detected is with an MRI. And you're not going to order a neck MRI for every single patient that walks through your door. But it is something to keep in the back of your brain, especially if you have patients who are like, I went to chiropractor, massage therapist, physical therapist, and they, messed with my neck, and now I have this shortness of breath and my heart's racing. I feel faint. I feel dizzy. Medulla oblongata is the first thing that should pop into your brain. Why does that happen? Because the medulla oblongata is going to have your major cardiac centers. So if the medulla oblongata gets damaged, so do these cardiac centers, which means your ability to control your heart rate is going to be compromised. Your major respiratory centers are going to be found in the medulla oblongata, which means you're going to have issues regulating your breath if they are damaged. And vasomotor centers are also found. Vasomotor centers, your ability to control the contraction and dilation of your arterioles and venules and arteries and everything, which means your blood pressure is going to be erratic as well. But again, it's not super, super common. If it is caught, it's just something that, or actually not caught, that's the wrong word. If it is something you are aware of, you just need to make sure all healthcare professionals, MDs, DOs, physical therapists, chiropractors, massage therapists, anybody who is going to touch your neck is aware of it. If you're involved in a car accident, that car accident is like one of the number one triggers for people figuring out they have it. Because they're involved in a car accident, it's a minor fender bender, they get some whiplash, and all of a sudden they have shortness of breath and irregular heart rate. Whiplash is enough. It's, like I said, not life-threatening as long as you are aware that it's there and you make all of your healthcare professionals aware. It's very, very easily managed. And that leads us to the cerebellum. The cerebellum, as I mentioned, is located at the back of the brain. It's located underneath your occipital lobe and is going to be the reflex center for integrating all sorts of sensory information concerning the position of your body and then coordinating all of your skeletal movements to keep you in whatever position you're trying to be in, whether it's walking, running, doing sit-ups, pretending you're a bat and hanging upside down, whatever you may be doing. Your cerebellum is going to be responsible for making sure it happens smoothly, or as smoothly as it can. And then the big thing it's going to do is maintain your posture, not pressure. So making sure you sit upright and not collapsing in half, essentially. All right, Last but not least, we're just going to tie this into the brain instead of doing a separate audio. We have the cranial nerves. These 12 cranial nerves come off of the brain and off of the very beginning of the spinal cord. Most of these cranial nerves are the reason why your face and skull are able to function the way that they do. One of them, however, is extraordinarily important for your ability to speak, breathe, have a heart rate, a bunch of different things. So, what are they? Cranial nerve number 1 is the olfactory nerve, and that is going to be responsible for your sense of smell. Optic nerve is going to be cranial nerve number 2, and that's going to be responsible for your vision. Cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6 are all going to be responsible for moving your eye around. So your ability to look up, down, side to side, and try and look at your nose. That's those 3 nerves. It takes 3 nerves to be able to do all of that. Cranial nerve 3 is actually referred to as the ocular motor nerve, and it will have additional functions. Its additional functions are going to be the ability to open your eyelids and to constrict your pupils. Why is pupil constriction important? Your pupils modulate the amount of light that is entering your eye. So being able to constrict your pupil means you can minimize the amount of light coming in. Super important when it's really bright outside. If you have a cat, you've seen them do it. Their pupils become these little pinpoints in bright light, and then if it's like dark outside or in the room, their pupils become huge. Ours do the same thing, just not as dramatically. And it's to regulate light, so the ability to see. Cranial nerve 4 is known as the trochlear nerve. Cranial nerve 6 is known as the abducens nerve. Cranial nerve 5. Cranial nerve 5 is known as the trigeminal nerve because it has 3 branches. One branch is along your forehead, one branch is along your cheekbone, and one branch is along your jaw. These 3 branches are going to enable you to feel various sensations across your face. So along your forehead, your cheek, and your jaw. It's also going to be involved in chewing. So your ability to eat is tied to this nerve. Cranial nerve number 7 is your facial nerve, and this one is going to be the one that enables you to make faces. So puff out your cheeks, frown, smile, that's going to be your facial nerve. This nerve is also going to be involved with taste. 2/3 of your tongue is going to be innervated by this nerve. It's also going to be, I misspoke earlier. Ocular motor is going to be involved in opening your eyelids. It's the facial nerve that is involved with closing your eyelids. I misspoke. This nerve is also going to be involved with your lacrimal gland, which is your gland that secretes tears. It's going to be involved with various nose and palate glands, submandibular and sublingual salivary glands. So it's involved in quite a bit. Cranial nerve number 8 is your vestibular cochlear nerve, and this is the nerve that's going to be responsible for your ability to hear, as well as your ability to maintain your balance and know where your head is in relation to your surroundings and your body. Cranial nerve number 9 is known as the glossopharyngeal nerve. This is going to be your other third of your taste buds. It's also going to be involved with managing the posterior portion of your pharynx. It's going to be involved with swallowing. It's going to be involved with salivation. Cranial nerve number 10. Cranial nerve number 10 is one of the one of the nerves that actually leaves your face, which sounds weird, but up till now, all of these nerves stay in your head neck region. Cranial nerve number 10 is known as the vagus nerve, and it is going to supply the parasympathetic nervous supply to your eye, heart, gut, lungs, and larynx. So it's going to control your rest and digest abilities for those regions. So your digestive system is controlled by your vagus nerve. Your heart rate slowing down, that is controlled by the vagus nerve. Your respiration slowing down, controlled by the vagus nerve. Your ability to speak, vagus nerve. your ability to not see, but some of that impulse to your eye to say dilate or constrict the pupil, that is coming from the vagus nerve as well. Cranial nerve number 11 is known as the accessory nerve, and it is going to supply, it's a motor nerve, so it is going to enable your sternocleidomastoid or SCM muscle to contract as well as your traps to contract. So this nerve is going to be responsible for your ability to turn your head and to lift your shoulders. And then last but not least, we're going to have the hypoglossal nerve. That's cranial nerve number 12. And this is going to control your ability to actually move your tongue. So the fact that you can move it to speak, the fact that you can roll it, you can touch the roof of your mouth, you can curl it under, whatever you do with your tongue, that's controlled by cranial nerve number 10. Now, this was just a short overview of the nervous system. If you take physiology here at Rose State, you will be going into it in way more detail. All right, I will see you with the next recording.